It's Chris. Today I want to share one of the greatest truths ever told, and that's probably a significant reach for most people to believe there is a greatest truth that's ever been told. It's now 45 years since the first day I started reading and studying and going to workshops and retreats on self-development. I've, as you probably know from previous podcasts, I've done all sorts of weird and strange things to try to understand the condition of the human spirit. That includes spending significant amount of time up in Canada with my First Nation friends at Big Cove community, learning sometimes the hard way, sometimes the beautiful way from some really powerful people in that community, what it takes to be inspired, what it takes to live a good life, and what it takes to be resilient to some of the most challenging and painful experiences we can have in life. I've also spent a significant amount of time with monks up in the Himalayas, sometimes in deep sadness, because the monks are hired to come into funerals, they're hired to come into weddings, they're hired to come into places where mountains have destroyed a complete community. So the monks, I guess they've got to bring a certain belief into a circumstance that helps people get through it to the other side. What we said yesterday really clearly in the work we were all doing together was it's not a matter of whether you grieve or feel sad or fearful or angry. Those things happen. The question you have to ask yourself continually is how long you spent there. So to be a couple of minutes in grief, a couple of hours maybe a day if it's a really serious situation. To be angry for a minute, that's cool. But really to be angry for more than a minute is self-suicide. And we are really worried about the virus killing people, but it still will never come anywhere near the amount of death and destruction that's been brought about by emotions that people hang on to for more than a few hours. But you've got to remember, if you're angry for 2 hours or 3 hours or a day or a week or a month, that becomes your DNA. Those thoughts, the memes, not the genes, but the thoughts that you have in your mind that persist over and over again, that are not affirmative, they're not optimistic, those thoughts are actually killing you. And so, although there may be a virus for us to all talk about right now, and it's overt and it's detectable and it's going to cause a lot of harm, there are far more dangerous things on the earth, such as environmentalists who are angry with people for polluting. Now, environmentalists who are angry at people for polluting are killing themselves. They're killing the people they're advertising to. They're killing their families with their anger, because anger and fear and uncertainty and all the things that are so poisonous, they're not just in our mind, they're not just in our body killing us, but thoughts permeate walls no feelings can pass through. So if you're having a thought right now, and it's a negative one or a fearful one or an angry one, you're giving that thought to other people. I don't know if you've spent much time around a person with depression, but man, oh man, it is so draining of energy. And it's not their fault. They've got themselves into a state of depression and they need help to get out of it. And that's the work we do quite often with business people who've got themselves into a bit of a mix of a mire and a struggle. And getting out of depression is one thing. Not getting back into it is another thing. And going through it, or as let's say embracing depression in our lives, is a way of saying, I'm not going to fight this. I'm going to let it come in, go through me and come out. And the only question is, how long do we stay in that state? The bigger your vision is, the shorter the emotions that exist in your body will be. So for example, if I have a really huge commitment to building a family or changing the world or whatever, I won't let small things like the drilling of the factory next door or people doing concreting disrupt my vision. I will be very engaged, and therefore I will not want to be taken off track. So, what is the greatest truth ever told, in my opinion, after doing all these 45 years of work, working on myself, working on others, working to evolve my level of awareness of the human condition, to understand the human spirit, to evolve global consciousness, which is the primary function of the work that I do, changing the world one heart at a time. What is the single thing that I think is the greatest truth ever told? Well, here it is. Practice between performances. Now, I'm so sorry to make it sound like it's not a great quote from Einstein or Pythagoras, or I'm so sorry not to quote a scientist who's won a Nobel Prize, or Anthony Robbins and be engaged with incredible power and enthusiasm, or Arnold Schwarzenegger to come up with a story of victory over crisis. I'm just going to say it simple. Practice between performances. It's the one thing human beings are able to do that nature never does. Nature never, ever fakes it. To practice between performances is to say that when somebody's watching me and when somebody's not watching me, in other words, whatever the performance I'm putting on in front of people is the performance I put on when nobody's watching. If I'm saying to myself, for example, my motto might be, as you've heard it before, live with spirit. When I say to you, live with spirit, what does that mean? It means when nobody's watching, at 8 o'clock at night, and you're sitting in your lounge chair and you're totally knackered, what does live with spirit look like? Well, for me, it's a glass of red wine. Not always vodka, because that's a good spirit, but it makes me angry. What does live with spirit look like? And am I committed to it 24/7? When I get sad, that for me is not living with spirit. And it's just too easy to not practice between performances. If I'm performing in front of a group of people doing a meditation retreat, and we're all sitting cross-legged and all very kind and compassionate to each other in the breaks, and then I walk out the front door and I bang my horn because somebody overtook me too fast, or I complain that not everybody in the world is doing meditation, I'm a hypocrite. And the hypocrisy of not living between performances, not practicing between performances, is what causes the human condition to fail. Now, you might meet some people who are very, very old, but the one thing they've been true to is the thing they've committed to. Sometimes it's a religion, being committed to a Bible or a Quran or the Buddhist Dharma, or to their culture, or to music, or to whatever it is. They practice between performances. And I'm not just talking about if you're playing a guitar to a group and you go and do rehearsal. I'm talking about what you do when you walk to the refrigerator, when you sit down to have a pee or a poo, when you go out in the backyard and pat the dog, when you go to a friend who is angry at you, or a partner or a parent or a friend or a child. What are you practicing? What are you practicing between performances? If you get this one thing right, there is no need for the word discipline in your life. You are living your truth. You're not hypocritical. When we are hypocritical, and we all do it from time to time, we feel like shit. We feel like we're being two-faced, forked tongue, as it's called in traditional North American language. Forked tongue, speaking with emotion. Speaking one word to one group of people and doing the opposite. People in glass houses shouldn't throw stone. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The truth the greatest truth that I've found in 45 years of doing thousands of workshops, running retreats with all manner of humanity, of attending meditation, yoga, running yoga schools, owning yoga schools, doing retreats, being in Bali, being in the Himalayas, meeting the sages and the monks. The greatest truth I've ever found is practice between performances. If you meet a monk, and I really recommend you do, go and meet the real monks, the ones in the mountains of Europe, or the ones in the Himalayas that I am so familiar with, or the North American traditional people. You'll meet the great sages of these groups, and they put on robes for their presentation. But if you meet them, as I've been fortunate enough to do, outside of their presentation, they're the same person. The Dalai Lama, for example, goes on stage and does a talk. He doesn't become a new person just to talk on stage. He is who he is, the same person off stage. Patabi Joyce, my great old friend, Ashtanga Yoga, and yes, there's a lot of criticism about him from a group of people who believe he was his sexuality was confused in the yoga room. I understand all that, but it was confused outside the yoga room too. He was Patabi Joyce. He didn't hide it. He didn't do it in a private secret room. So I'm not saying that everybody is in the right place. I'm not trying to say that the world is full of diversity. And if I believe in owning the diversity in me, I better believe in owning the diversity of others. That's called practicing between performances, walking the talk, walk a talk. It's really important when you say these words, I practice between performances, to know what the performances are all about. If you want to be the big environmental icon of the world and tell people that global warming is not healthy, maybe it's really wise to look at the job you're in, to look at what you're doing and to earn an income, to who is paying your bills, to where you get your petrol from, to what sort of a car you drive. Maybe you need to practice between performances and walk your talk. There's a beautiful words of a guy, Dr. John D. Martini, who says, nobody walks their talk, we only limp our lives. So we can't beat up on ourselves for not practicing between performances. What we need to do is continually work on it. And I think this is really important, that we practice. If we say we want the world to be a better place, we need to be a better person. And if we want to be a better person, we need to think in a better way. And if we want to think in a better way, we better eat our food in a better way. And if we want to be a better person and eat our food in a better way, we better digest our food in a better way with loving thought while we eat. It's just too easy to put on a veneer, especially in this era, to put on a veneer of I'm a real carer for all the whales and the dolphins and the rainforests and the bushfires. I'm a real carer. But be completely operating in the opposite, in a state of disguise. Practice between performances. Know what your performance is. Practice it when nobody's watching. Go deep to a soul level and integrate it in every word, every thought, every movement, every food you eat, every word you speak, every look you have, everything you do. Embrace your vision in the moment. This is Chris. You have a beautiful day. Bye for now.